So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom and time for another Rambles of a Fool. So this edition this week is very heavy on map details. So obviously the new maps are coming with patch 1.0 and the new HD implementation, which means there's quite a few changes afoot. So we're going to look at some of the feedback from the community contributor meeting in Minsk, talking about the future of various maps. We've also got a preview of a couple of new maps in Super Test at the moment, and also some interesting data around sort of kill zones and artillery hotspots on Himmelsdorf, which I think you might be interested in, and a few bits more as well besides. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, so I'm guessing some of you may have already seen a lot of talk about what's happening with the maps based on a community contributor meeting that happened in Minsk last week. Harkonnen from the Daily Bounce blog was one of those who went along. Thoroughly recommend you get along and have a look at the Daily Bounce. Harkonnen does a great job there. So a lot of the information actually seems to have come from the pictures he put up about this, which is really cool. So new map things. We talked about Glacier, which is on the test server right now. I showed that in my last Rambles of a Fool, and you can see that it's funny enough, I didn't know the history of this map. So originally it was introduced to the Super Test in July 2016, so 2 years ago nearly. And there was even a night version of it, but the graphics engine couldn't handle it, and that's why it's taken some time to come in. fact, it was supposed to be a Swedish themed map, so it would have coincided with the launch of the Swedish tanks, but it had to be postponed. So it looks like with the new engine that's coming with the 1.0, that makes that map viable, and it's kind of fun. I mean, you know my view. Any new map is a good thing, even if it's slightly unbalanced. I'd rather have variety so that you get just a bit of change every so often, rather than constantly having the same maps rotate round. And my big concern about 1.0 is they seem to be removing a lot of maps, either because they can't turn them into HD or they need so much work to be balanced out. So we're going to have less maps. They'll look prettier, but there'll be less of them, at least in the short term. There are more coming, and that's what this meeting was to discuss. So Provence, old-time World of Tanks players will remember Provence as the map that you almost always got. It was the most common map, I think, in the early days of World of Tanks, when you were in sort of lower tiers, and it was kind of a massive valley with two sides, but the two sides were basically shooted out across the valley at each other, and anybody who went down in the lower region, in your lower regions, would be lucky to survive. And it was a bit of a slugfest, campfest, and there was some interesting routes that you could find to try and break the impasse, but Wargame removed it because it just was too campy, even for the lower tier, because I think initially they reduced it and said it's only going to be lower tiers that play on it, and then they even took it away from that. So they're looking at increasing the map to try and do that, and also introduce some flank sectors, so ways to get round and try and break up that campy nature. The issue with those is apparently they're taking too long to break your way round and get around. So we'll have to see what's happening with this. But so they're still toying with this, but the idea apparently currently is to remain having this. It's a bit difficult to see on this map, but the balconies that ran each side of the valley here, they're thinking about keeping, but now having a sort of a road that allows each team to work their way round the back of these things, and other sort of zones that allow heavy tanks and mediums to have a bit more of a fight. It was really a TD map in many ways, this thing. I remember playing with that, what was it called, the T10, the American little tiny tank destroyer, and you used to go into games and there'd be like 10 aside, and all you do is sit up on the hill here, and anybody got spotted, they suddenly be hit by all these HE shells fired from that American TD and obliterated. So yeah, I think it's good. As I say, just pleased to see some different maps, and interesting they're sort of colouring this as a Italian map by the look of it. So given the fact Italy are bringing their new tanks into the game, it could well be that that's the reason they want to offer this map up. Although Provence, that's France, isn't it? Oh well, never mind. So yeah, I think it's good. I mean, you can see there's various versions here. They're looking at different road areas to allow you to scoot round. Can't bring that map up any bigger, I'm sorry. Still looks a bit campy, but then a lot of the maps are, so yeah, we'll see. We'll have to see when they actually come into Super Test. We'll see. Pilsen, another map, actually one of the newer maps that's been a big problem since they first launched it, and they're looking at what to do about it in terms of balancing it more and making it more fun to play. So zone 1, which is the factory area, the sort of the factory as opposed to the hangar, which is the 4 region. So the 1 region is traditionally where all the heavy tanks fight it out. So they're going to make it a little bit more open, less cluttered, and it's true, because you do get to a situation where sometimes there's multiple tanks all trying to get into the doorways of these things, and they're sort of backing into each other and getting in the way of each other, and it can be quite frustrating if you're in something lumbering and slow, and somebody a bit quicker has got to the the choke point and is just blocking it all up because they're busy fighting. They got there first, and there isn't anywhere else for the heavy tanks to go on that map. Pushing through the warehouse here, or the hangar in the middle, is a little bit dangerous. So less clutter around the one zone, the multiple warehouse area. And they're looking at putting in new entrances to the zone 4, which is this central hangar, which is good, because at the moment you've only got 2 on each side here, haven't you? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a hole in the wall here. So it looks like there's going to be another one over this side, which I think is good, which allow possibility to be able to come through and support this one area here. Area 2 is being looked at completely different. So instead of the hills and corridors and a couple of houses, they're looking at putting in smaller hills here, basically. And this area looks very, very different. Very, very different. So the houses have gone. It just looks like a bit more bumpy, a bit more hilly for the mediums and the light tanks to play. So the 3 area here where the TDs and artillery tend to park, it looks like they're actually raising this up so that it can support both here and here, but it's quite exposed. So high risk, high reward is what they describe it as. By parking in these corner areas, you can support the heavies, stop anybody outflanking down the what's that, the 1-2 line, I guess it is here, but also potentially far across this way and support anything going on the 2 line. So that's kind of cool. We'll see. Minsk, another historic map. So interesting, one of the things that came out of the discussion here at this contributor meeting that Harkonnen was talking about in this article is the fact that they have struggled with maps like Stalingrad and Kharkov, because they have modelled them on real cities. So because they've modelled them on real cities, it's very difficult for them to alter them substantially, because they're modelled on the real city. So what they've decided to do with Minsk is that they are going to just basically use it as a themed map. So they will take the sort of areas of Minsk that are most well known and put them into a historical type setting, but it won't attempt to follow all the grid patterns that there are in Minsk. So that would allow them to be a lot more balanced in what they do, which is good. So that I like that. That's kind of cool. no real detail. You can't really see an awful lot on this map about what's going on, but it looks like there's a sort of factory type area here, open area. It looks like a bit like Paris in many ways, but instead of the open area being on the flank, it looks like it's in the middle, and you've got the built up area and underpasses by the look of it out on the right side here as we look at it, and the left side there's sort of factories or apartment blocks or something there. And then they've put these historic sites on this map. I've never been to Minsk, but I'm guessing these aren't anywhere near where they actually are located here, so in relation to each other. So here we go, we can see a little bit better here. So area 1 is the medium tank zone. Medium tank zone. Area 2 is sort of ridge down the middle, which is where the light tanks can play. Area 4 here and here is where the TDs and artillery sit, and then heavy tanks brawling through the factory type area here, the closed streets, and then out on the flank you've got another flanking zone to allow things. And this is very much the formula. You can, once you've seen this sort of design, you see it in all their designs. You've got it in what's the one, Stalingrad has it, because it has the beach area, which is the flanking zone, and then there's a heavy zone, and there's bits they build into this to sort of be ideal for the different types of tanks. And yeah, interesting. We'll see. But obviously these all need to be tested, so we'll see what comes out of it. An Asian map, which is also very interesting. This is the one that we saw, I featured on the channel a little while ago on Rambles, and you can see it has the battleships in a dry, well, I was going to say dry dock, but they actually are wet docks, and you're fighting around this with an airstrip down there. Looks like it'll be really good fun as a map. I liked this one a lot. Lots of brawly areas, lots of sneaky areas. You've got area 1, which is a massive area for the heavy tanks to play, which is great. So very heavy tank friendly. This area around, I think that was the landing strip here, airport, is very good for the lights and mediums. Tank destroyers and artillery can sort of get up on the hills on the edge here and over here to fire across the open area here. And then you've got area in the middle here for medium gameplay. So not quite so good for mediums, this map, but very much, but well, I don't know, because they've got this area here too. So I liked this map. I thought this one looked really kind of cool. So I'm pleased about they're progressing with that. And then the Polish map, we talked about this a little while ago. I butchered the name of it. Again, very much more open. It's got this sort of farming area in the middle here, lots of open fields, lots of hills around the edge, around this area here. Again, plan being this area is anywhere built up tends to be the heavy tank area, so that's the same in this map. Area 2, which is the middle area, an opportunity for some scouting and light tanks to do their business. There's a sunken road, I think it is, or maybe it's a raised, I think it's sunken road along here from memory. You've got the artillery and TD zones at the back here, and then mediums out here, and mediums and heavies out here in this factory, or this sort of string of houses down here. So kind of good. Other maps, that this is the bit that gets most people excited. So Klondike, which is the new 30v30 map that came in 9.22. Bizarrely, it won't be ready to go into HD when update 1.0 comes in, so it will be gone from the game for a little while until they manage to HDify it. Why they brought in a new map and then didn't think about the future, I have no idea, because that only came in the last patch, for goodness sake. Wide Park, so this was introduced for only lower, well, it was originally for all tiers, then they made it only lower tiers, so I think it's tier 6 or lower, only are allowed on it. So they're looking at making some changes to it and making it again available to all tiers depending on how the super testing goes. So yeah. Kharkov, again, one of the newer maps, and depending on what they do with it, they're not happy with it basically, and they're looking at some rework of the map, see whether they actually, if those work, then they may well continue to develop it. If not, it may go out the game, but I don't think that's going to be available with the new patch. So we'll lose Kharkov. What a shame, everybody says. Nobody really likes Kharkov. Maybe the people who live in Kharkov, I don't know. Highway. Wargaming has plans to return this map to the game. Whoopee, but not before it's been changed and rebalanced. The objective to bring the map as soon as possible, but Wargaming consider it difficult to rebalance, so it might yet be shelved. So, boo, shelving. Swamp, Windstorm, Stalingrad, Sacred Valley. They will go. They will not be turned into HD, so we will lose those 4 maps when 1.0 comes in March. So Swamp, Windstorm, Stalingrad and Sacred Valley. I don't know what I feel about that, to be honest. Well, I do know what I think about that. I don't like it. I don't like removal of any maps. I think they should all be kept in. I don't like any of those maps personally. I think they're not good maps, but I think there's far worse maps in terms of gameplay. I'm thinking of Ensk. I'm thinking of what's the other one? Anyway, there's at least 2 other maps I can think of that are far worse gameplay than those 4, but they stay in, and these 4 are coming out and will be gone. You know, it's a possibility they might look at turning them into HD at some point down the future, but at the moment Wargaming are putting more effort into the newer maps rather than trying to rebalance and convert these 4. And Mittengard is the only map guaranteed not to return to the game at all. Now, many of the older players will probably never have played Mittengard. It was the sort of beginner's map. It's the one where you start on a hillside. Both teams start on the hill opposite each other on a valley, and you drop down into a sort of city area and fight it out. And that's just been discarded, which is nobody's going to be disappointed by. So there you go. Some of the changes of the maps. Some of the new maps. It's nice to see the new maps, but I can't help feeling sad to see things like, well, I don't know, sad to see Swamp go. It's a horrible map. So I quite like Windstorm. I think that was an alright map. Sacred Valley I will not miss, just because players played it absolutely atrociously, and you're so dependent on you know, you could lose that game immediately depending on how people deployed. If nobody went to the Abbey area, then you were kind of in real trouble from day one. If nobody committed down the heavy line, then you were in real trouble. And invariably nobody went into the center area, and then their enemy light tanks came straight through the middle as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a horrible map, but more down to the gameplay than the actual map, I think. But doesn't matter what I think, that's gone. But let me know what you think down below. Be really interested to know what you think about some of these maps disappearing, and these newer maps that they're looking to introduce at some point. So here we go. This is the new Polish map. Super test still, so graphics are nowhere near where they're going to be, but you get a good idea of the kind of layout. Looks a very, very open map. There's this, I guess it's sort of a farm complex here in the middle area. Boy, it looks open. Big fat heavies are not going to like this. Interesting. Looks like a golf course in the middle there. And World of Tanks, crazy golf, obviously. The cat. What happens over on this flank? There's a sort of ridge and a wooded area. Okay. Looks like Pilsen without the factory, doesn't it? In some ways. What is a manor house? Is that what it is? Very grand. It will be when the extension's finished, obviously. So sort of TD gun depression tanks out on the 1-2-3 line. Don't know where the heavies are going to... I suppose the heavies have to brawl it out in the farm area, or that factory area, in that middle hill area, but they're going to have a hell of a job if they're getting outflanked. It doesn't look much of a heavy tank map, that one. It really doesn't. What do you reckon? Let me know. Now, one thing I have to point out, and this was pointed out on the status report blog where they put this out. Look at the loadout of their shell count. 13, 13, 13. Now, I know this is not a real tank, but this is just crazy, really, just having that kind of loadout. Okay, so this is a second version of the same map. Didn't realise there were two on here. Oh, this looks a bit more promising. Looks a bit more heavy friendly. Mandatory factory. Gotta have one of those. Golf course over here by the look of it. Look at that bunker there. Blimey. Nice sneaky area for TDs, light tanks, mediums maybe. Yeah, a bit more sheltered to fire on the enemy cap and to be defended by you. Nice ridge there. Looks like kind of a Napoleonic style ridge there. Hide your troops behind. But you have got all these buildings, so this is a bit more exciting for heavy tanks to fight it out down the, what is that, the I? Can't read it. J or I can't read it. My glasses aren't good enough. Line there, that sort of boulevard of houses. This one here, good place for the heavy tanks to brawl it out, I guess. I think I prefer this map. I think this one's a bit more balanced. Yeah, before I was rudely interrupted by the showing a second map. It was pointed out by status report blog that you know, for all the claims that Wargaming make that there's only 5% of gold fired, the fact that their own tank here has 13, 13, 13 kind of puts a lie to that, doesn't it? Anyway, nice, good to see new maps anyway. So Rambles this week is shaping up to be a map special. So this is the Armoured Patrol picked up on a Russian World of Tanks portal, looking at stats around the gameplay in different maps. And the one they've looked at initially is Himmelsdorf, and they've reviewed all the numbers, crunched all the numbers about, you know, how different maps play, what the impact is, and they particularly looked at Himmelsdorf around categories like where is the most damage inflicted. So looking at the bottom base, so the green base in the south, it's probably no surprise. It's this area here down this road here, the loophole area through here, because you're susceptible. Certainly these two positions here are susceptible to fire from here. The banana road, of course, you get a lot of fighting down here with the heavies particularly, and the assault guns. These positions up here, unsurprisingly, on the hill. This one here is because you get shot at from down here. This one because you're being shot at from here, and also I think this is quite a heavy artillery area here. You can get hit very nastily from artillery that might be based out in this area. So interesting that. From the northern side, slightly different. Again, the banana road to be expected, but what's interesting is that there isn't the equivalent down here. So once you've broken through, it seems like you've broken through, and therefore there isn't an awful lot of not so much damage down here. This area here is a very predictable one, and a lot of tanks tend to get shot at because everyone knows someone's going to go and sit in that window. This area here is quite dangerous because you can be shot at from up here. If your enemy take the hill, then this position is almost untenable. This position, because as you push down, you're going to get ambushed by tanks here, here, and here. This one again, once the hill's fallen, you tend to get tanks falling back to here, and also there's a window here, so any tanks here can shoot into this position. So yeah, interesting. This is an interesting one. That this is such a heavy damage area here for the upper base. I'm not quite sure why this position would be, because it's out of line of sight of Banana Road. I suppose it's, you know, when you're having a last ditch fight, you might be holding this crossroads here against things coming off the hill or things coming down the Banana Road. Anyway, Places where vehicles are most often destroyed. So this is probably very similar to the previous stats. This is the upper base, obviously here, here. I think the red is the most, so red is the highest level. So Banana Road here and here. This one because you get shot from below. This one because it's the dueling area, but also other areas there. Let's look at the southern base. Sorry. So this position here, Banana Road again, and here pretty much the same as the northern base, or sort of the equivalent. Although interestingly, this position out here is obviously more used by teams in the south than it is from the north, because it hasn't featured at all on any of the maps, has it? There you go. No, not at all. So people get to this position but die here. So let that be a lesson to you. Zones of concentration for artillery. Right. So this will be a position this will be something that everybody dearly loves. And artillery is not the most effective on Himmelsdorf or any of the city maps really. But it's interesting. This is the upper base positioning. So tends to be up round the top here, as you'd expect. These positions here are pretty good because they fire down this way. You can just about hit here, but you can certainly hit up the top of the hill here. This position here fires up onto the hill to a degree if you've got a good lob on your shell, and it can also hit around here. This position is a bit of an odd one. I've not used that one myself. I might have to try it out. I guess it can hit here probably, if you, again, depending on the arc of your gun. And these are the positions where artillery most are hit. So this area here is a fairly obvious one. Any artillery down here will generally be pre-aimed in this area here. These positions here are susceptible to fire from here, which is why that's there, as are all these positions here. Banana Road, I think you can hit it from this position, so the south of the Banana Road. You can't hit right up here, but you can hit back here. So again, if you want to avoid artillery, those are good places to go. Interesting also, these two positions are very obvious places where artillery would sit from the southern base, so they're good counter battery positions, so that's probably why that shows up so hard. So looking at the southern base, obvious artillery positions are along the base here again, and here, same as the other flank. Quite a lot of tanks go out to here. I've not done that before. I guess that could be the lower tier ones that have a much smaller range. They have to go there. And again, the damage areas for taking hits, less here because actually it's quite hard to hit this even from here, because there's this bit of rubble here. Then you've got to drop it onto anything that's just pulling back. It's quite difficult to do, but a lot more strikes here and here on the Banana Road, and particularly around here. And again, the hillside very exposed to artillery down here. So there you go. I think it's kind of interesting. It's a by the by really, but you know, people moan about artillery, so these sort of things give you an idea about where you should go to avoid them really, because you can see where the artillery positions are, and likewise if you're an artilleryman you can see where the artillery are likely to be sitting. I mean, I think you probably all know that because this map is quite a small one and quite sort of defined positions for different classes of vehicles. But there you go, interesting, and very interesting how much number crunching wargaming can do of World of Tanks. So it was talked about a little while ago that there was a rumour of an Argentinian Sherman coming into the game, which was basically like a Revelise at tier 8, and it was pretty soon poo-pooed and discounted by other bloggers and others, and in fact I think Wargaming said no, that's not the case. However, mmowg.net, the Italian blog on World of Tanks, has apparently found out that it could well be true. Actually, we may well get access to Argentinian tanks. Now, not expected to be a branch, proper tech tree, but maybe just one or two premiums. Oh, as if they'd bring premiums into the game. And possibly for 2019, so some way off yet. So, it was, here he says here, it was, they reacted to it with a large dose of skepticism, but there apparently is a working group who's been set up to collect material on the country, on the tanks from Argentina from 2015. So it seems like it could well be some grain of truth in this, and maybe we might get the Argentinian Sherman at some point. because, you know, we haven't got enough Shermans in the game, so it's all good. So now's your time to buy your tier 8, 9s and 10 vehicles if you haven't already done so, certainly on the EU server. So to coincide with Ranked Battles Season 1, you can get 30% off tier 8, 9 and 10 regular tanks in the game up until the 26th of February. So you've got another week or so for that. And, you know, Ranked Battles off and running. Now, I actually went out and played about 7 games, I think, in my Type 5 heavy noob mobile, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was helped by the fact I won. So I lost the very first game, and managed to finish top of my team, and so got, you know, it was like winning effectively, so that was great. And then the next 6 games, somehow I managed to be on the winning team, and on at least 5 of those I was 4th place on my team, and so I'm now level 3 on Ranked Battles, which is amazing. And I got some extra credits, some extra equipment, which is kind of good, and some bonds, which is nice. Not that I still got anywhere near enough to to play. And the way it works, so, you know, I'm level 3 now, so it means I will come up against other level 3s all the time, and you have to finish. So if you're on the losing team, whoever comes first earns 1 extra chevron. If you are on any other place, then potentially you will lose a chevron. If you're on the winning side and you're in the first 3 places, you earn 2 chevrons. If you're in place 4 to 10, you earn 1. And anything beyond 10, you get nothing. So 11 to 15, you get nothing. Now, you don't automatically lose the chevron if you lose. There's a sort of kind of a life system. I think I explained this in one of the other games, one of the other videos. So there's a life system, so you can lose a couple of games before you lose that chevron. But if you get on a losing streak, you could potentially lose the chevrons you've earned. So yeah, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. You know, a lot of gold spam, as you would expect, but they're all tier 10 vehicles, and everybody spams gold in tier 10. I have to say I played a couple of games where I didn't fire any premium HE in the Type 5 Heavy. I just fired regular HE, and I had a great time. Really enjoyed it. So I got a bit scared though, having done so well in 7 games. I then had to stop because I thought this can't continue. So I haven't been back. So maybe I'll give it another go and update you on another video. But let me know what you're thinking about Ranked Battles. You're finding it good fun? I like the fact that now there is an incentive to go and play for the win. One of the previous seasons, it was all about damage, and even on the losing side, if you did enough damage, it didn't really matter whether your team won or lost. Now it does, unless you happen to have done really well and finished top, you will lose out. So you need your team to win, and you need them to go for it. And that's good. So, but let me know what your experiences are of Ranked Battles. Love to know. So thanks for watching. I hope you found it interesting and useful. If you did, please give it a like, and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Just click that subscribe button and the notify button so you get to see when content gets posted. Appreciate all the people who have subbed up till now. We're up to 928 or something. Which is fantastic, so I appreciate that. Missed the golden 1,000, so I lost my YouTube partner status just the other day, which is frustrating, but you know, doesn't make an awful lot of difference in terms of money, because I don't really make any money, but it just is nice to see the possibility of it. But I missed it by about 80 subs, so we'll have to hope that I can get up to, well, I will have to hope, you guys probably don't give a damn, but I'm going to hope that I get up to that 1,000 and can reapply, because it'd be nice to just have that and to be able to get a little bit of money from the channel, but I can't at the moment. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, enjoy your games, have fun, try not to take it too seriously, and I will see you again soon. This is Gamer Dom signing out.